You're tuned in to another episode of The Coaching Lounge with your host, Rebecca Gordon, lead life coach at satellitelifecoaching.com. Listen to interviews with creative thinkers, motivational speakers, models of success, and key people of influence. Tune in, relax, engage, and transform your life now. Welcome to another edition of The Coaching Lounge. I'm your host, Rebecca Gordon, who is the coach and manager at Satellite Life Coaching. I'm joined today by Joy Langley, and because there's going to be a lot to discuss in this conversation, I'm not actually going to spend too long announcing everything about Joy, because I'm going to give her a chance to tell me about herself. But I do need to tell you that Joy Langley works as an emotional management coach, and she calls herself the thought catcher. Isn't that beautiful? She takes on the challenges of getting the 30-somethings and 40-somethings to examine their destructive negative thoughts and core beliefs. Joy says, "We are the sum total of what we think. So it's essential that clients reinstall more compassionate and inspiring ideas about themselves." Joy worked as a college counsellor prior to this, giving teenagers and mature students the tools to cope with academic and personal issues. Joy Langley, welcome to the Coaching Lounge.
Hi, Rebecca. That is such a great introduction. I can't believe you came up with all of that.
Well, I had a little help because I did ask you to give me some information. I do some research on guests, so I have done some research on you. But there's more to you, Joy, because I know that as you've indicated, you worked as a college counsellor and working with teenagers and mature students. But you've also done some PR work and some work in the music industry. Can you tell me about that, please?
Wow, I've had a very interesting life, Rebecca. The music business came about in my mid-30s, but previous to that, I'd graduated with a degree in chemistry and didn't know what I wanted to do in this world, like everyone else who comes out with stuff. I wasn't one of these very focused people who knew what they wanted, and I kind of drifted, I suppose, into higher education. Did okay. I kind of thought that would open up a lot of doors for me at the time, but back then, in the sort of mid-80s, life had changed politically, so the jobs weren't there. So I came out with my lovely, shiny degree, and I was really happy and bubbly, and then nothing. I just didn't get a job that I wanted. I ended up working as a secretary, which is not a bad thing, PA secretarial stuff, but it really wasn't me. And later on in life, I got into the music business via my boyfriend, who became my long-term partner, and I had a child with him, etc. So yeah, that's how I got into the music business. It was really in the middle of my life, and following on from depression. Rebecca, can you believe I got depressed? But
was that whilst you were in the music industry, or after, or around
way before that? It was after I came. It was after I came out of university, being quite a reasonably happy, bubbly person. My name is Joy, so it's kind of a lot to live up to. All the time. And I've always felt the pressure of that name. I have to be happy all of the time, but I wasn't. And I think it was a kind of a realization that I felt that my degree would open the doors to everything, my passport to success, and it wasn't. And I think I just plummeted on the basis of that thought, and became really withdrawn, very upset, probably as well very angry. Right. The world did not give me what I deserved and what I wanted, like a petulant child having a tantrum.
Well, you say that, but I think, my daughter, she's at university now and she's due to finish this year. And the thoughts are, well, actually, you spent these 3 years and given a lot of money into the system. Although she's got a loan, she's now got to repay that, as many students do. And it's a case of, with all this debt and leaving university and what are the prospects. So I can imagine, going through 3 years and having to push yourself forward, that coming out and realising actually, it's a bit challenging finding a job, that there would have been a downward shift in your moods.
I was cheated. I felt cheated, Rebecca.
Right, okay. I mean, I don't know how much it's changed now, but I know, many people can probably resonate with that. So you landed on your feet.
I did.
Which is great, yes. So let me just ask you then. I mean, you were depressed coming out of university. What got you through those times?
Yeah, I look back now and I think that perhaps the solutions that I found then are things that that took me into the counselling world, I think, and therapy world. And it was lots of ideas around books that were to do with changing your thoughts, and lots of ideas about really what is depression. I didn't read books around depression. I tried to find books that were positive thinking books. So at the time, I think there was this phrase, you're probably too young to remember, Rebecca, but positive mental attitude, PMA.
I can just about recall it, I think.
You're too young for that. But it was definitely all these, and it was around the time that athletes were coming through. And a lot of, in the world of, sports and stuff, a lot of black athletes were coming through. So as a black woman, black cultural upbringing, Jamaican, sports was huge. So people coming through in the sports world, I think it might have been Olympics at that time, and PMA was the thing. Everybody has a positive mental attitude, and very American ideas too. But I found they helped me.
Good, that's excellent. So before going into your counselling and your other work, you went into the music industry. Tell me about the famous person that you met. How did that come about?
Oh, yeah. Well, I was doing a magazine with my partner, and we were interviewing artists, and Destiny's Child came over. So for those of you who know Destiny's Child, the one big, huge person that came out of that was Beyonce. So I met Beyonce and her cousin, who obviously went on to offend Kelly, and the other two that, they were interchangeable after that, went with the other members of the group. But I met them and we interviewed them, and it was great. And I didn't think anything of it because they just looked like fresh-faced young, 17, 18-year-olds wearing cardigans, like I used to wear lots of jumpers and cardigans. And that was it, interviewed them, and they went on their way.
Wow. And years later.
Look at her, she's a superstar.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Okay. So what did you take away from that moment? I mean, knowing how big Beyonce is now, what are your reflections on that?
Wow. I think I enjoy talking to people, Rebecca, and I think that's why I've fallen into this whole realm of emotional management. So my takeaway from that was that, just enjoy being with people, enjoy finding out about them. You actually never know where anyone is heading. And it's just a philosophy in life to be interested in people and just to be nice to people. I do that wherever I go anyway. So interviewing them, I didn't have any major knowledge of where they might be going, but everybody's got an interesting life and an interesting story to tell.
Very true. I do agree with that. So let's just move forward now, because I love the title of your business, of what you do, and you're the thought catcher. And one of the things that you've told me that you do is that you help clients to reinstall more compassionate and inspirational ideas about themselves. I love that phrase, reinstall. So what is the reason for mainly working with clients who are in their 30s or 40s?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, for me, I think the ideas and the concepts are available to everyone. Doesn't matter what your age is. Even my little niece who's 6 years old, I talk to her in certain ways, and my son who's 21. But I've noticed that age group, you start looking for, I call it the meaning to life, Rebecca. You start going through these regular kind of moments of turmoil and deep thought. And deep thought can be a dangerous place because if you don't come up with any sensible answers, you can be left with depression and, just low mood. So, but introspection is a good thing. It's a good thing. But I feel that age group, entering your 30s, the big 3-0, and then you enter the big 4-0, and we won't even talk about the big 5-0, which is where I've got to. Every stage in life seems to make you question, why am I here? Why am I here? Huge questions. And I think because I am a deep thinker, those questions when I came out of university in my 20s, that was driving me. What is my purpose? Why am I here? I'm sure I'm not just meant to be using a photocopier and making coffee all day.
And of course, as you say, in the 30s and that mantra for the 40s, life begins at 40. For a lot of people, it is sort of like a wake-up call where they, do a massive reevaluation of their lives. So is this what you find people come to you for?
People aren't necessarily reevaluating their lives. Some people are. Some people are just having distressing relationships, so personal relationships, sometimes relationships at work. But I always bring everything back to you or to me, because we are the only people that we are able to control and manage. Even if you have a partner or you have a child, a son or a daughter, you don't have any power over them. So it is about always learning how to manage yourself. I'm always into self-management. I'm never ever looking really outside of yourself. But the problems, they're as multicoloured as a packet of Smarties, different colours for every day,
Yes, that's a nice way to put it, in the best possible way for challenges that we have, yes. So we do hear this term, cognitive behavioural therapy, being bantered about. Just for the record, for the audience members, I'd just like you, the expert, to please explain the term cognitive behavioural therapy, explain what it is and exactly, or how it works from your experience.
Right, okay. And thank you very much for calling me an expert. I never view myself as an expert, but you're quite right. I've come across this phrase where an expert in somebody else's eyes is someone who knows perhaps 3 more things than they do.
Well, okay? I say that because this is what you do. You work with clients. Yes, it's a massive responsibility, isn't it? Because
I'm qualified.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So, you're the person who's been doing this for however long. So, yes, I do see you in that way, actually.
Oh,
yes.
Great. Okay. Well, for me, cognitive behavioural therapy, and it's abbreviated to CBT, is mainly looking at the concept that lots of things happen to you in life, lots of events happen to you in life, and then it will generate a feeling at the end of it. It could be happiness, sadness, it could be anxiety. Anything could come out of that, any emotion that human beings encounter. And, our ability to experience an event, me and you, Rebecca, let's say we could be, walking down the road and I don't know, we both fell over. You could jump up and you'd be laughing. I could get up and I'd be screaming. And someone observing that would say, well, hang on, that's the same situation they were in. How comes one person's laughing and how comes one person is crying? Okay? Yeah. So the bit in the middle between the event and then the feeling that happens is our interpretation. So we'd have to climb inside your head, Rebecca, or ask you, oh, Rebecca, you're laughing. How? Why? What did you make that mean? You might say, oh, it's so funny. Oh, it's so embarrassing. Oh, I keep on doing this. But you know what? It's okay. You'd have this attitude which would then influence the way that you felt. And then you turn to miserable Joy and you say, Joy, you've been crying. Oh, Joy, what on earth were you thinking? What did you make that mean? You thought, oh, I've ruined my leg. My skin's never going to repair. Oh, I could have broken my leg. It's terrible. Oh, my God, my dress. My mum's going to tell me off. You could go on and on about it.
Yeah.
So, same situation, different feelings, and the bit in the middle, which is the real critical bit, is what did you make it mean?
Right.
So, cognitive behavioural therapy is cognitive, means mind. Behavioural, looking at the behaviour, the outcomes, what you do as a consequence sometimes of something, and trying to manipulate those two things, either changing your thinking, which can be possible, which is harder, or looking at the behaviours.
Right.
Sometimes changing the behaviour is the easiest thing to do, and around areas of depression and anxiety. With depression, let's say if you were, started to move very slowly and you were lying on the couch a lot, or not wanting to do the washing up or brush your teeth, and it can get pretty bad. I'd say in a behavioural way, well, just try picking up your toothbrush. You don't have to even use it. Just pick it up.
Yes.
And that might then be the baby step that leads to you possibly putting some toothpaste on it, possibly brushing your teeth in the morning, and then possibly brushing it twice a day if that's where you're going.
Yeah.
But it's about encouraging someone to make that start, and you know about all of this as well, Rebecca. Getting into action is what you really need to do.
Yes, because I mean, what you've said there, where somebody could just be lying on the couch and not wanting to do anything. I mean, that is actually a reality that some people face in their lives. So, it's a case of sometimes you can just not know what to say or what to do to help someone. But as you say, just doing one thing is a massive achievement. And it's to keep that process going,
Absolutely.
on. Yeah. So, yes.
And then the other part to that equation or that solution would be, if I were lying on the couch, Joy, what were you thinking? So I have been one of those people, Rebecca, and for me, I would come home from work, a horrible day's work, using a photocopier and doing whatever. And I just go and lie down on the sofa and I get a huge box of Maltesers and I would just lie there.
Yes.
And so if you were my little fairy, you say, Joy, what are you thinking? I'd be thinking, you know what? Life is crap. Do you know what? I don't even know why I'm here. I'm so fed up. This is not what I expected to happen to me. I'd be in such a place of negative thoughts that would be the reason, part of contributing to my behaviour.
Right.
So you might be that kind person, say, come on, Joy, life isn't that bad. What can we do about this? Perhaps we ought to think about changing job. Perhaps you'd be doing that encouraging part, which again, almost like kick-starting a car. You're getting my engine going, and I'd be off again.
And that is crucial because it's great to have someone standing outside of yourself, who can help you to see certain things or to identify, the thinking patterns, which is, we're going to go into that a little bit more later in the interview. But I must say, Joy, that we've known each other for a while now. We've kept up our communication. And one of the things I greatly admire about you is because you keep it real. You come across as being authentic, and having integrity. And you're not afraid to share your own experiences, your thoughts and your feelings. So as you've said, you've experienced being low and being depressed. And I just want to ask you, how then, you did your reading, self-development helped you. But looking and knowing now about CBT, how does that help you? How has that helped you in the past?
Yeah, well, you're quite right. There's the words that I'm putting to my actions now. So a therapy called CBT, and there are lots of ideas. But back then, I think it was simple steps about changing my thoughts, and I was heavily influenced by people who were creating affirmations. So it's a huge, world of new stuff, kind of very sort of people that don't believe in the power of thought and the ability to change it might not think that affirmations work. But an affirmation, which is a series of, hopefully a very short sentence that's very positive, that turns your thoughts around. So my idea about falling over and it's a terrible thing to do and my leg's never going to, heal is actually, Joy, we heal. The body heals. Very simple statement.
Right.
And I would say it to myself, quite a few times. I used to write it on a little index card. So let's say if it was the example of my body healing, I would put down, Joy, your body heals. And it does it beautifully.
Fantastic.
And I would read that, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, once in the evening, or as many times as I could then fit in. Because what I'm now doing, that word you mentioned at the beginning about reinstalling another idea, we're doing that all the time, Rebecca, aren't we? We're always, giving ourselves the opportunity to have a fresh thought or another thought. So repetition.
Yeah. I mean, I share that, but just to say, sometimes we don't. Sometimes the thoughts aren't healthy. They're not self-serving. They're not, self-supporting, really. But what I'm hearing is that you set the intention, or you actually tried to give yourself a different message.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's sort of like a challenge that we have to pose to ourselves to actually want to try a different way, a different thought, a different message that we're giving
Yeah,
ourselves. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And more recently, Rebecca, I've come across the whole concept of, how did we as young children learn in the first place? And, something simple I read, it was repetition, repetition, repetition. And I thought, oh my goodness me, so
Yeah,
it's, wait, if you give it a little bit of thought and you kind of just accept some of it, the same thinking or the same machinery or process that got you into trouble in the first place can get you out. So this simple thing that the mind is only absorbing the information that's repeated or you do regularly,
absolutely, yes.
you have the power to undo
Yeah.
it.
And these become the beliefs, don't they, that we carry?
The beliefs
Yeah,
are very powerful because they
yes.
just sit there like I would say like my spare tire around my tummy, Rebecca. It just sits there, I can't do anything about it. But I know in the world of losing weight, and I could lose my spare tire, I do know how to do it.
Yes, that's right. We have the tools. Great. And what you do is you remind people of that, and you help people to find the tools, equip themselves to do the
Exactly.
work. Great. Okay. So what we're going to do is take a quick break. I can't believe it's halfway through the interview already, Joy. So we're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we're going to come back. We're going to be talking about thinking styles and going a little bit more into the thought, the mind, and how it works.
We support your transformation. Stay tuned for more engaging discussion after this short break.
Usually, we struggle through life alone, with outdated beliefs and self-sabotaging actions that bring the same results. How different would it be if you had a personal success coach who helped you make the shift and create a plan for happiness? You will fearlessly align your values, achieve important goals, and reframe your perspective when you have coaching with me. Email Rebecca at info@satellitelifecoaching.com. Book your free discovery session and change your life.
You've joined Rebecca Gordon and Joy Langley in the Coaching Lounge, and we're talking about a few things actually. One of the things being mind management, cognitive behavioural therapy, and how to support yourself to manage your mind in challenging times. Joy, thank you so much for sharing with us so far. I would like to ask you, because we've talked about depression as well. I know that I have low moods, yes. I'm a life coach and I do other things. And I know, about, as you've said before, the positive mental attitude, keeping yourself upbeat and, keeping yourself vibrant. But I will admit that I do have low moods. I do get down. But what I'd like to ask you is if you could actually give a distinction, please, between low moods, being depressed, or being clinically depressed. How would someone know which of those states they're actually moving into?
That's a very, very good question, Rebecca. And I would say to you that I'm going to fight you to be at the front of the queue of being depressed and having low moods, okay? We're going to have to do a real arm wrestle here.
Okay.
Because everybody experiences that. It's kind of like normal. And for me personally, when I get to there, I have to question whether it's just me having a temporary thinking moment, which is okay, that I'll come out of, or it's going to be something more serious. So when I first experienced depression and that feeling of, not very nice thoughts. I call them dark thoughts, basically. I don't want to be here was where mine took me. I knew it wasn't a sensible place. I knew that wasn't me. So the diagnosis for clinical depression is something which a doctor would he wouldn't be the person, or she wouldn't be the person to make the diagnosis, but they would send you on to a psychiatrist who would then do that diagnosis. Initially, your doctor would hopefully hand you a sheet with a couple of questions on it. I work with my clients and I have 9 questions which I give them, which are around depression. These are questions that have been recognised by all these experts and researched and everything. And then 7 questions around anxiety. So according to how those questions are rated on a scale of 1 to 4, you can begin to work out from the number where somebody is at. So the questions on the depression might include things with worrying a lot and anxiety and not eating properly, not sleeping properly, all these different symptoms which we can all have, be quite honest. You know, I've had stay under the duvet days when I've been working, you know. I just don't want to get up today, and I'm not going to get up today, and I'm not going to work, and I'm just going to stay in bed. But hopefully after 2 days I do go back to work. But if this persisted and you really, at the end of the 2 or 3 days that you think, oh, well, now I've had enough, they're going to expect me to be back. If you don't go back and you can't go back, and you might then switch into something else, another behaviour, possibly panic or possibly anything else, then there's something happening. So it's to do with the persistence, the persistency, the permanence of something, the feeling that it's just there, you know, and it won't go away. That's when I would classify it as being something that, you know, you really do need to get something done about it.
Okay, so it's to recognise when it's just persisting, as you say, and take the action to do something. But for some people, you know, there's denial, isn't there? And there's the fear of being judged.
What do you mean by denial there, Rebecca?
Perhaps, what I mean by that is, okay, so you stay in bed, say, for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, or, you know, not interact with others, or, you know, you're not your usual self. And the denial might be actually, this is just how I am, or this is just how it is, or, you know, not really owning up that there is a need to see someone or talk to someone about how I'm feeling, you know, perhaps thinking, well, I can deal with this myself.
That would be a major self-con, wouldn't it? I don't know. Even at my lowest, I couldn't actually con myself into, oh, this is just something simple, Joy. This is going to go away. Ooh, don't worry about it. I couldn't even con myself into that way of thinking. So, to me, you have to recognise your own critical point, or lovely words that you might hear about now, the tipping point, the point at which it stops being okay and starts becoming serious. For me, I know that I will let myself wallow for a day. You know, I can do a day, okay? If any of my problems roll over into 2 days, I'm thinking, ooh, this is not so good, Joy. You've got something you've got to think about that you have to solve. I don't ever get to 3 days anymore. It doesn't happen to me. I just about get to the end of the day, because once you sleep is quite an interesting process. It can reset everything, and that whole phrase about it will all look better in the morning, invariably it does, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I've said what I've said is just that my mind cast back to a time when I knew someone in that sort of situation, and it was a persistent thing.
Yes.
You know, so like I said, I mean, keeping things real, although we might know what to do, it can be a reality for some where they're just stuck, you know, especially if they're isolated.
Absolutely, but also, Rebecca, you know, for me, people have their own, like, I suppose, set points in life, don't they? Emotional set points, you name it. I know a lot of very miserable people in between the really happy ones that I know. My mum is a miserable person. She always has been, and she likes it. She wouldn't be happy unless she was miserable. It's a kind of a standing joke in our family, but she's a worrier. She's
Right.
a worrier.
Yeah.
She's taught me to worry. I'm very, very, very good at it. But I don't like being in that place. So when I find myself doing things which don't make me feel good, it's a very good indication that there's something wrong. And this place of denial, I think you can only do it to yourself for so long, because you do have to look at yourself in the mirror, within reason every day, even though people stop looking in mirrors to try and get around that. And hopefully having friends around you who point things out to you, because your friends and your family notice immediately that you've changed. So this isolation thing that happens, you're right, it's part of depression. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to do anything. But you have to recognise that that's not how you were before. You have to almost remember a time when things were good and think, well, what was I doing then? I was going out with my friends. I was going to the shops. I was watching television. I was able to read a newspaper without reading the same line over and over again.
So, I mean, the key message, because what I'm wanting to do here is, this recording will go out. And for anyone who feels that they're in a place where it's, they can't see a way forward, just to hear the message is actually, even though you feel how you feel, what needs to happen is go and seek some support, speak to someone, just do that one thing that will shift things, just in that slight trajectory where you actually can move on to a path of improving your life. But,
that's a great message, Rebecca.
Yeah.
So I don't even have to say anymore, because you've said it before. Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though you're in that place where you feel awful, there's a part of you that will recognise that this state that I'm in is not nice. It's not where I want to be. In fact, I would love things to change. But the longer you stay in that place, the less you seem to. I think it got to a point in my life when I was depressed, I couldn't remember what it was like to smile. I thought I used to try and turn the corners of my lips up, because they sort of say,
Yes.
there are muscles in your face that will trigger stuff in your brain. So it does actually work.
It does work.
But in the corners of your mouth and
That's
physically
right.
looking in a mirror and turning them up. I look like the Joker in Batman. What's it? It was terrible, but it is about the smiling.
Yeah,
will trigger these good feelings.
that's right.
Yes. You just have to say, I want to get back. I used to say, I want to get back, I want to get back to being happy. I want to get back to being happy. I want to get back to being happy. I couldn't even remember what that looked like. You've gone too far. You know you're too far in your ditch or in your cave or wherever it is you feel you end up retreating into. You're just too far.
So the small things matter. These are some simple strategies that are massive in the difference they'll make in your life if you're feeling low, if you're feeling depressed right now.
You can spot them very, very quickly.
Yes.
To do with eating, to do with sleeping, to do with worrying too much, to do with lack of concentration, to do with thoughts of not wanting to be here. Really powerful one, that last one, which people don't like to think about. But yes, and my one about what's the meaning of life was really me saying, what's the purpose of me being here? But because I'm so not super intelligent, I've got a good brain, I've got a good imagination too. It took me to a place where I didn't think there were any good answers. In the absence of a good answer, I found another answer.
Right.
Almost.
Okay. Yeah.
Almost. But I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here, so that's good news.
Excellent. Well done, and doing a great service to support others who are going through challenging times in their lives. So let's move forward then. And it's forward, but it's still connected with our whole discussion about the mind management, cognitive behavioural therapy. Wayne Dyer, the motivational guru who I love, who passed away last year, he said, you become what you think about all day long. You've heard that, Joy, haven't you?
Absolutely.
His mantra, yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, just as there are learning styles, we learn in different ways, there are also thinking styles. Can you share with us, please, Joy, some of the different thinking styles, please? And if you can describe some of those for us.
Absolutely, can share with you. because I do them on a daily basis.
Great.
I did one yesterday.
Great.
So one of them is, the major one is catastrophizing, blowing things out of proportion, thinking that something simple happens and it becomes the Titanic. And if people watch a show in England called EastEnders, people are always being over dramatic. There's always problems. Just watching that particular show makes my blood pressure go up. I can feel myself getting really anxious.
Right.
So I can do that on a simple level with anything in life. I had some problems with my car yesterday, and I came back. I got myself home, which was lovely. But then I had a whole series of what if. But what if I'd broken down on a motorway? But what if I'd broken down? There was a lorry behind me. But what if? And I thought, hang on, Joy, pull yourself back. Where are you right now? I'm at home. Great. And you're okay. Yeah, I'm okay. But what if? And the but what if statement is so powerful. It takes you down this huge rabbit hole. So catastrophizing. You know when you're doing it, stop it.
Okay.
So that's a huge one that people just practice. I'm very good at it. My mum taught me how to do it, so I still do it.
Yeah.
I'm able to pull myself back.
So it's like we create a story where there's no story to be created.
What's it? Drama, rather.
Yes.
You just create so much drama. It's untrue. And there are people that, if the life is going really smoothly, they do actually create drama. Because there's a lot of energy in that place, I've got to be honest. I like the energy sometimes in that place.
It's like there has to be something happening. Our life is too calm right now.
There you go. And it's almost like your body is demanding to be in a place that's of high energy, and you look at a lot of stuff, Rebecca, and I know that my body just wants to, I just want to feel alive.
So I suppose one of the strategies there then is to channel the energy into something else. It could be exercise or sports or something like that, perhaps.
There you go.
Yes.
Or and not even channel that energy into something, get your energetic kick from somewhere else.
Right, excellent.
Because all I'm doing by allowing myself to wander into that behaviour on a regular basis and get charged, literally like plugging me into the national grid.
Okay.
Why don't I just go and do something that makes me feel that anyway?
Okay.
And then I won't need to resort to that way of behaviour.
So that's catastrophizing.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah.
The other one that I'm really, really good at, which is I'm sure people do, I'm very good at mind reading. Of course I'm not, Rebecca. I haven't got a crystal ball. I think I can predict the future. I jump to conclusions an awful lot. I put A and B together and I make Z. I put 2 + 2 and I get 10. And I think I'm right. That one is a terrible game, but I do it a lot.
Okay.
I realise when I'm doing it, and we do it when we're talking to people. We don't listen to them properly, and we think we know exactly what they're going to say next. We don't hear what they say.
So reading very deeply in between the lines and creating again another story.
There you go. Lovely.
Right.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, that place, but it gets you into a lot of trouble because in the area of depression, let's imagine that I was walking down the road and I saw you, Rebecca, and we're great friends, and you ignored me. You blanked me completely. Okay?
Yeah.
Now I'd go home and think, ooh, I wonder why Rebecca blanked me. It's probably because I've forgotten her birthday. Oh,
right.
What did I say to her the last time I saw her? I must have upset her. And I would think about that all evening. And possibly the next day.
I was going to say, so much unnecessary worry, Joy.
Oh, please.
I would never blank you.
Yeah, I know, but I know you wouldn't. And if I saw you, and if I bothered to ask the most sensible question, which is, I don't know the answer, I'll have to ask Rebecca.
Yes, okay.
You say, oh, Joy, I'm so sorry. My cat just died and I don't know where I am. Or, oh, Joy, I don't know what happened. I just lost my purse. Right. And I was in such a... Then I said, oh, that's the reason why. So it wasn't all about me. Okay. We make things mean a lot about ourselves. We're very kind of me. Yeah. I made it all about me, not about you, Rebecca.
So clarification there, just ask to clarify, yeah.
Please,
okay.
Don't go making up a long, tall story, 10 chapters deep when You don't even know if it's the first thought was true.
Yeah. Well, great if you're writing a novel, but
it's fantastic. The imagination is amazing, and people that and it's actually good in its own way. It's a place of imagination. I love it. Great. So I do have a lot of it.
Okay.
And the other one, which is really, really interesting, is they call it black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking. It's where you're not very flexible. So let's say you asked me to, clean the kitchen, and I went in there and I cleaned the counter and I cleaned the sink. And you came and you said, "Joy, that's just not good enough." Why? Well, do you know what? You've missed that bit in the corner, and you've also moved this, and it's not in the same place. I say, "But look, Rebecca, You say, "Joy, that's just not. It's either you've done it well or you haven't, Joy. There's nothing in between." I'd go, "Oh, she's so tough on me."
Well, that sounds like a parent, doesn't it? Parents are very good at black and white thinking, aren't we?
Yeah. So where do you think we probably get it from?
Yes,
we kind of gets passed down the chain, this whole thing about, it's either right or it's wrong. And it's a place of inflexibility. Something's either good or it's bad. We don't realise we're doing this to ourselves. But I practice what I preach. So I do always look at myself and I say, well, what kind of a feeling are you getting at the end of doing something, Joy? And invariably, if I'm feeling anxious, I may have been in a place of black and white thinking where I've not given myself any room to go. And we call it shades of grey, and not just the book. Right. Not just the book, okay? Yeah. But black and white, grey, two extremes, if you drew a straight line. And in between, you have to introduce the shades of grey, which will allow you to become a little bit more relaxed and less uptight. Okay, great. Yeah, and the one final one, which I know I must tell you about, is, always getting into a perfectionist type mode. So you're a perfectionist. I should do this, I ought to do this, I must do this. And we kind of pick it up as children, I think, because we do a lovely painting, and it's at one point our parents say, "Oh, that's so wonderful." And then at some point we get a bit older and say, "Oh, that's just not good enough again." We say, "Oh, I must be able to paint properly. I should paint a face properly. I should be able to draw this properly. So therefore, I'm not good at drawing." We come to some really crazy conclusions. And then I must do this well. I should do this well. I ought to do this well. And we use these words. So when you find yourself using those words, you have to pull yourself back and think, actually, this is not helpful for me on an emotional level. It makes me feel very anxious, Rebecca. Even saying those words.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure. Anxious. Yeah, it's a lot of pressure, isn't it? That we place on ourselves.
The pressure to get things right and to not fail.
Yes,
huge.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for sharing information on some of the thinking styles there. We're actually just going to take a short break and be back. And on the return, we're actually going to explore some strategies, some techniques, some self-help tools that Joy can share with us for self-management of the mind.
You're tuned in to the Coaching Lounge podcast with Rebecca Gordon. Find out more about us by visiting satellitelifecoaching.com.
Think big for a moment. If you could create your best life, how would this look? What if, in just 30 minutes, you had a plan of action to get closer to your dream? Make the impossible possible and claim your free session today. Visit www.satellitelifecoaching.com now.
I'm here with Joy Langley in the Coaching Lounge. Joy Langley is the thought catcher, and we are discussing the mind, mind over matter, depression, and various things to do with the cognitive, thinking styles and the approaches that we take in our thoughts to life and how these reflect in our behaviour. Before I come back to Joy, I just want to read an extract from a book called My Stroke of Insight that I read some years ago now. Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor is the author of My Stroke of Insight, and she experienced a stroke when the blood vessel exploded, a blood vessel, I should say, exploded in the left side of her brain. And in her book, she shares understanding of what she gained from her journey to recovery. And she gives some fantastic information relating to her experience and her recovery process. And her message is that deep internal peace is accessible to everyone. And here's one of the extracts that I'm going to read for you now. There has been nothing more empowering than the realization that I don't have to think thoughts that bring me pain. Of course, there is nothing wrong with thinking about things that bring me pain, as long as I am aware that I am choosing to engage in that emotional circuitry. What are your thoughts on that, Joy?
That was perfect. I closed my eyes as you were saying that, actually, Rebecca, and I felt a deep sense of peace.
Yes, yeah.
Ironically, I just felt really calm.
Right. And because Dr. Jill Bolt Taylor, I think she is either a psychiatrist or a neuroscientist or something like that, because of her discipline, her training, she actually looks at the science and the mechanisms of how the mind works. So what I liked about reading her book was, she speaks about the circuits and how things connect. And you can actually get a clear picture of the emotions and the thought process and how it all links into the mind-body, management system. So that's one of the things I love about her book. But it is that we have 80 to 90,000 thoughts every day, which amounts to 1.2 thoughts per second. And some of these thoughts are repeated thoughts that don't even serve us very well, that don't support us from previous days. So, Joy, this is the question. You've shared with us some tools, some techniques already, but I just would like you to just share some other self-help tools, or a technique, if you like, that will help someone to direct their thought to the positive.
Okay, and that's a huge question as well, Rebecca, because people are under the misconception that you can control your thoughts and that you can somehow push them away. I do tell my clients, and I tell myself, and I practice it anyway, that thoughts are like clouds. So you imagine the clouds up in the sky, when you've got those lovely fluffy ones, and they just keep on moving. They move. And that one moves out of the way, and then another one comes into place. So thoughts are like that. You can't actually control them. They're just there. Okay? But what happens with something that you give attention to is that it grows. So some of the thoughts that we have that are causing us problems are only problems because we're actually giving it an awful lot of airtime, as I call it, or attention. So the thought happens, and you have to challenge it. So I call it, catch a thought. Great, I'm the thought catcher. Catch that thought, examine it, question whether it's got any truth to it. If it hasn't, you're able to let it go by giving it an alternative idea. So, I don't know, let's think about, I mentioned my car breaking down yesterday, and I couldn't get stuff out of my head. I was stuck in, a lorry could have, crashed into me, or I could have, broken down on the motorway. And I had to stop and say to myself, hang on, Joy, is that happening right now, or did that happen? And it didn't happen. I thought, great, Joy. So what thought is going to be a kind of thought for you to have that's going to help you right now? So it's about self-compassion as well. And I thought, it didn't happen to me, and I'm very fortunate. And I thought, that's good, Joy. And I started feeling a little bit better, thinking that I'm actually very fortunate because, yes, of course, something could have happened to you, Joy. But did it happen to you, Joy? And I went, no. So a lot of internal self-talk. We talk about the self-talk, and because we're talking about mental health, there's this real, kind of grey area between, am I going mentally insane by talking to myself, or is this normal? It's normal, guys. I have a lot of self-talk. In fact, I talk to myself all day. Nothing wrong with it. I'm quite good. I solve a lot of my problems too. But self-talk can be dangerous if it gets you into a loop where you're feeling anxious. So I undid that loop. The thought was, let's question whether any of what you're saying is true, Joy. And sometimes you can give it a percentage. You can say, is that thought 100% true? I could have been killed by a lorry. Well, it's probably true if a lorry or a van had been around, or a car. But did it happen, Joy? No. So it kind of unpicks that, unravels it all.
Yeah, puts it into perspective.
Into perspective. And the idea that could then develop from that could be, I am a rubbish driver. I shouldn't be allowed on the streets. I shouldn't be out there. And depending on what's just happened to me with my driving, I might really believe that. I might think, do you know what, I'm a terrible driver. I should not have run that cat over. I know it just ran in front of me, but I'm a terrible driver. And in order to stop me getting into being suddenly not driving at all and developing a phobia, I have to say, well, hang on, Joy, are you really a terrible driver? And I'd say no. Okay. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, Joy, what was this driving situation about? Was it about bad driving? It wasn't about bad driving. 0. It was about a cat. Yes. Did you choose to have the cat there? No. Was it an accident, Joy? Yes. So are you a bad driver, Joy? Well, I'm not a bad driver. It was an accident and there was nothing I could do about it.
So
that's the truth.
Yeah. So it's rationalising the thinking process. Yes. I loved what you said there, Joy. You spoke about self-compassion, which is very, very important. And sometimes it is that we would never dare speak to a friend or a loved one the way we speak to ourselves.
We wouldn't.
So it's to be kind and gentle and, speak lovingly to yourself.
And I always say to myself, and I tell my clients as well, you have to be your own best friend.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay?
Very
that
important.
will definitely make you be kind. You'll be much more compassionate and kinder and say lovely things. When things happen, like you spilt the milk, it's not, oh, you silly cow, why did you do that? And it's actually, never mind, let's clear this up. Accidents do happen.
Yeah. Okay. So, on the same vein, relating to tips and techniques, and thank you very much for sharing that important information and strategy that you've shared there. I'm just going to introduce Dr. Taylor again, who provides a technique to changing the script, the mental script, and she says this: when my brain runs loops that feel harshly judgmental, counterproductive, or out of control, I wait 90 seconds for the emotional physiological response to dissipate, and then I speak to my brain as though it is a group of children. I say with sincerity, I appreciate your ability to think thoughts and feel emotions, but I'm really not interested in thinking these thoughts or feeling these emotions anymore. Please stop bringing this stuff up. I love that, don't you?
Wow, yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
yourself I was going to say telling yourself off, but you're not actually telling yourself off, because this whole process that's happening to us is that we are having our fear response triggered, okay? So every situation that we're in, we're basically animals, Rebecca, sorry to say it, but, we come from this place where we only had to wake up in the morning and, like every other, organism out there, what am I going to have to eat today? And that was your job. And then possibly, how am I going to stop myself from getting wet, so let's find some shelter. These might have been the only 2 things you have to do during the day to survive. So anxiety, the response that is triggered, is a message to your body that we need to do something, that a situation has occurred and we need to solve it, otherwise we might not live to tell another tale. So we're always in that mode where we're watching and waiting for something to happen. We will never get rid of that. You don't ever want to lose your anxiety response. But it's being triggered for very, very simple things, and we don't know how to get ourselves out of it. So that's what's happening. Anxiety is normal. It's part of life. You don't ever want to lose it, but recognize the mechanism. So that story actually just kind of acknowledged a mechanism that the fear response has been triggered, and all the little children, let's say like little children, running around saying, "Oh my God, what should we do? What should we do? What should we do?" And someone has to step in, hopefully an adult, and say, "Excuse me, I can hear you making an awful lot of noise in the playground. Could you just settle down? What's the problem?" "Okay, thank you for letting me know that there was a problem. I'll deal with it in a moment." You kind of almost have to acknowledge the bodily response. It's got a message for you. Don't just shoo it away. Acknowledge it. Validate it. Yes, I can see you have a point. Yes, we're about to fall into a ditch and it could be dangerous for us. I acknowledge that. Great. And then you say, "But it's all under control. I'm not about to do it now. We've pointed it out. Thank you very much." And it just goes away. That whole fear. It's almost like a roller coaster of emotions, Rebecca. You go up and you're on the roller coaster and you bring yourself down.
Right. And putting, the mind and the thoughts and the thinking process across in those ways, it makes absolute sense, and it just makes it easier to know how to manage your mind and manage your thinking in challenging situations.
I'm making it my life work, Rebecca.
Yes.
I'm making it my life work to make things, to simplify things, to introduce more pictures and imagery so that someone can grasp that and they can say, "Oh, now I know what you mean, Joy."
You spoke about anxiety, and I want to explore this a little bit more with you, Joy.
You're not feeling anxious, are you, Rebecca?
Well, I mean, the programs that I do, I say in my programs when I speak to the guests I have in the studio, this show today is as much about me than the listeners who are tuning in right now. But, we all get anxious. And one of the things I want to ask you is if someone is about to start something new, because I think sometimes that's where anxiety can kick in. If you're starting a new job, you're launching a new business, or you're going to university for the first time, how does someone manage anxiety and manage, just to reduce the states of feeling anxious in those new situations?
I would say to you, Rebecca, that anxiety can also, it can also be just because you're doing something new. Anxiety will get triggered because something's new. I don't know what's around the corner. I don't know what to expect. It could be anything. So you can imagine my voice is now getting really high pitch and I'm starting to race and I don't know what's going to happen. We don't like to be in that state of I don't know what's going to happen. That's where anxiety kind of lives, in the future. Okay, it's a very future thing. And then there's a real sense that, and when I get there, I won't be able to cope. So you put the fear of going into the future, I don't know what's going to happen, and link it with also the other thing, and I won't be able to cope. And you're just off, you're just panicking.
Right, so one of those thinking styles comes into play, doesn't it?
But everything that we do that's new is going to trigger that kind of response. So you mentioned some lovely life events, going off to university. Sometimes it can be, getting married or having a baby. Sometimes it can be, going on a holiday. Sometimes it can be, for me and you, doing presentations, having another client, that we're working with. But I get into that state every time, Rebecca. I really do. Just before coming on this interview with you, I was in a state. I thought not too high, but definitely I felt, ooh, what is this feeling? Ooh, I know what that is. I'm feeling anxious. I thought, yes, Joy, because you don't know what's going to happen.
So it's normal.
It's normal.
It's normal.
Absolutely
Okay,
normal.
Fantastic.
But obviously you have to be the judge of it happening too often, and you have to be the judge of whether you're getting into a place where you might be developing, they call it anxiety attacks or panic attacks. It's just gone a little bit too far. And you have to realise that, this is a normal place to be. But if it happens too often, I might be in a place where I'm stressed because it's getting triggered far, far, far too quickly. So anxiety is okay, but you have to be the best judge of your own place and your own temperament, and whether it is just because you've had a stressful day at work today, but you'll be okay tomorrow, or it's an ongoing thing. I've been stressed for 3 months now, and this is happening too often. Your body has got a message for you. It's telling you that you have to slow down and do something.
Okay.
So when it happens more often, I do pay attention to my own body an awful lot.
Yeah, so listening to the signals and, as you say, recognising them for what they are.
Yeah, they're very real.
Yeah, okay. So, Joy, what I want to do now is touch on the work that you do. What are some great outcomes that you've had with clients you've worked with?
Right, okay. So I work with people in the 30-something group and the 40-something group. I had a client who had, let's say, a phobia. He was frightened of the fact that he'd done something really very terrible, in terms of possibly murdering someone. I get some interesting cases, but this client felt that something had happened, and it triggers another process where you then do something to perhaps make sure everything's okay. So he had things around driving, and perhaps he'd run somebody over and he hadn't spotted it. And he would actually physically go down to the police station, and they'd say there was nothing wrong, or he might listen on the news or the radio to see if anything had happened, man murdered a person,
right.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So if that's the thought, I might have murdered somebody, then you will find some way of solving that. Well, the only way I can make sure is to check. So checking comes into it. Mm-hmm. So he was checking. He was going back and redoing the route that he'd just driven on to make sure he hadn't killed anyone accidentally.
I can imagine he must have been in quite an emotional state.
Yeah. So it sounds really crazy saying it, doesn't it? But it's very real for people when they get stuck in a loop like that. So he took on board the idea. It's just a thought. Mm-hmm. It is a bullying type of thought, and he's taking it far too seriously. He's believing a lot of what it's saying to him. So he found a way of just managing that, and I obviously took him through some techniques. That was really, really, really good. I've had clients who've had had depression, obviously. A lot of them to do with broken relationships. And again, I work with a lot of men, which is lovely. I quite like working with men. So he's suffering from a bit of a broken heart, really, and he just couldn't get this person out of his head. They're broken up, and he couldn't work out why. And he just had lots of aspirations for them for the future.
I must say, sorry to interrupt there, it's nice to hear, that you're working with a lot of male clients, because it's thought that women predominantly are the service users for personal development work, but it is nice because I think men, we think or we understand, tend not to share their emotions or want to talk about their feelings and their thoughts.
It's an interesting idea, because I don't know if it's entirely true, Rebecca. I think on paper it would look as though women were accessing the services, because we like to talk, Rebecca, don't we?
We certainly do, yes.
I mean, me and you've had talks for the longest length of time. Oh my God, is it 3 hours later? Women like to talk. Men don't talk to each other in that way, and I don't entirely blame them. The circuitry in our brain is very different, the male brain and the female brain, as much as I don't like to admit it.
But
it
then,
is different.
But then the suicide rates for men are disproportionately high.
That's right, but
yes.
Going back to women are the only ones, or the majority, seeking all this, talking therapy stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, it may look like that, but men are not predisposed to having that kind of a chat all of the time, but they will. They will engage in that kind of talk. So I've met a lot of men who will do that. I think they have to be comfortable with the language, and they have to be comfortable with the process. And then, as you said, the other outcome which you mentioned about, then perhaps men aren't accessing the services, and they're the ones that are obviously the highest suicide rate at the end. Yeah, it's because they don't necessarily seek the help when they should. But I've found really that I meet a lot of men that do seek the help, and different age groups as well, and very open to talking about themselves and solving things. Men are innately problem solvers.
Yes.
So are women, but men are higher up the scale of problem solving. So I think something like CBT, because it sounds very practical, and I work in a very practical way, it is actually, I think it's very much suited to the male brain.
I interviewed Clive Maxheath from the Men's Action. It was a great interview, yes. And he spoke about, men need help too, which was great. And I mean, he does, rock climbing, they do expeditions and all these different things, practical things. But yes, it is good to know and to hear that men are accessing your service, Joy.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And as you were saying that about, that great interview with Max, men need help. Even if you said to me, Joy, you need help, I would cringe at you saying that to me. I would not be able to accept that I needed any help, and it makes me instantly feel weak. Now, men do not like feeling weak. No one likes feeling weak, but definitely men do not like feeling weak. So, the language that we use around what we're doing, even as coaches, some of it might be very female-based and very appealing to women, but a right turn-off for men. So we have to be careful.
Yes, I hear what you're saying there, but I think it's brave, actually, to own up to the fact that, you need help, that support's needed. And the more I, do the work that I do and the interactions I have with people, men do recognise, actually, I'm putting my hand up here. I've heard men tell me this, I need help, I'm admitting it, I need some support here. So right. I think, it's not a wrong thing or a bad thing, or for a man to say that. I think men are seeing it as being brave.
And I agree with you. As women, we know it's absolutely essential to tap into the wisdom and the knowledge and the comfort of other people. Okay, but I know that I've got a son who's 21. So at some point, I feel, and perhaps I've ruined him, toughen him up to the world. You're a man. You're going to be living in a man's world. You have to be tough. This is how men are. So there's a point possibly at which I started treating my son in a very, very different way. I haven't got a daughter, but if I had a daughter, I know I would not have been applying those rules to her. So men do toughen up. And then when they're tough, we then expect them to become weak in a way that, in just contrast, not be as tough. It's actually quite hard to undo all the programming that goes into this is what a woman is and this is what a man is. And of course men access help, and it is a question, I feel, of language. I do find that I change my language with men. I don't know if possibly you do that when you work with your clients.
I have to be true to me. So of course I need to identify the energy of the person and resonate with their energy. But I use my my integral listening skills to hear and to adjust as I need to adjust. But I do find that actually when I speak to male clients or even male friends, they very much do open up and talk about deep pain, hurt, trauma. And I think that evolves because of trust. So I think it's to, develop the rapport there, which works well for me.
Doing a great job, Rebecca.
Right, yeah. Clive's show, actually, it's one of the most listened to and downloaded shows there. So that really? As well is actually evidence that people are wanting to hear about men needing help and actually to take up the support that's there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And going back to this, men-women thing, every woman knows a man. So, even though it may not be a direct message to, let's say, a male listener, a woman listening to this show knows somebody who is male, who may she think
Yeah.
Women are very good at telling men what they ought to do.
Yeah.
So they'll say, I think you ought to listen to this, or I think you should go in this direction. So it's brilliant that we there's a coexistence between us. So we do kind of, tell men that, yes, I think you ought to do this or try this or whatever. It might be a good idea, even if they haven't come across it through their own steam.
Yeah. So I think there's a whole, another show there. Maybe we can have a further discussion on, looking at this specifically with men, because I think I'm always an advocate of, women are always seeking support and getting support, I think. And I'm always an advocate for males, because I do think, especially as black males as well, that there are lots of things that they're not receiving that really they need to be tapping into or need to have access to. But because of stereotypes or pressures or how they're seen in society, there does have to be projection of being a man, which is great. But I think sometimes underneath the layers, there's a lot of emotional pain and trauma going on there, which is never really recognised, validated, acknowledged or understood. But a great interview, Joe. I'm really loving our conversation today. And I just want to ask you a bit more about other things that you do in your line of work. I mean, do you run courses and workshops?
I have been doing some courses locally. I've been doing some around self-esteem and also the pursuit of happiness one. Funnily enough, I know that Will Smith had that lovely film out around happiness, but the pursuit of happiness. So I do them locally. I am sort of expanding them, but I think because I spend a lot of time working one-to-one with my clients, the time isn't always there. So at the moment, what I'm doing is developing online courses. So it will make it more accessible to everyone, wherever they might be. That's my main thing, is kind of widening, I suppose, the reach of the information that I'm giving out. Right. So online courses, that's what I'm working on. Excellent. New projects, hopefully, who knows, middle of this year, September time, sooner, who knows. But that is my thing, is to allow people to access it wherever they are.
Okay, sounds great, Joy. And what are you reading these days?
I am a terrible reader, actually, Rebecca. Yet I have bookshelves full of books. I've probably got over, 60, 70 books staring at me now on my shelf, and then I've got others that are hidden in different places around the house. Right. The most recent book, I'm trying to find one that I've bought recently. I've been buying some stuff to do with cognitive behavioural therapy, of course. So one of the most recent ones that I bought has a lot of visual imagery aimed at young teenagers to help them to understand the connection between their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions. So that's a great book. But there are lots of books that I also like to reread. One of my favourite authors is Reverend Michael Beckwith, and I will just sing his praises till the cows come home, really. And he's an amazing thought leader, reverend. He's into all the things that make you feel good about yourself and straighten out your thoughts. And he also came in the film The Secret as well, and he's been on Oprah. So he's very, very well known. You mentioned Wayne Dwyer at the beginning. So he's on that level. And he's coming to the UK as well in middle of April. Okay. And hopefully I'll see him.
Fantastic.
And I should be a real groupie and I'll get an autograph.
Fantastic. Okay. So just before we take your contact details, Joy, the last quote from Dr. Jill Bolt-Taylor's book, My Stroke of Insight, last quote for today is, "Learning to listen to your brain from the position of a non-judgmental witness may take some practice and patience, but once you master this awareness, you become free to step beyond the worrisome drama and trauma of your storyteller." So, last thoughts from you, Joy?
Well, that was a great quote as well, and every time you say that, it proves to me that I must understand what I'm talking about, Rebecca, but I basically did understand what she said there. Not judging yourself so harshly and not taking every thought as seriously as it first appears. And I do say to people, stop taking your thoughts so seriously. Lighten up a bit. One thought a second, 50,000 thoughts a day, half of them positive, half of them negative. They can't all be true. They cannot all be true. So be a bit more discerning about which ones you decide to, as I say, take the ball and run with it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joy. Can you please share your contact details? How can listeners be in touch with you?
Yeah, well, I've got a website, so it's catchatthought.co.uk, and I can be emailed at joy@catchatthought.co.uk. That's probably the best way to get hold of me. I'm sure if you typed it into any reputable search engine, you might find Joy Langley or Karen Joy Langley, because I have two first names. Mm-hmm. And I'm on a lot of the social media, things like LinkedIn and Facebook. So, and via you, of course, Rebecca, you are the best source for getting hold of me.
Fantastic. Well, Joy Langley, thank you so much for spending time with me in the Coaching Lounge. It's been a very in-depth and insightful discussion, and I've really enjoyed it. And let's keep our connection and invite you back in to be with me again in the next few months.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, and you're a great hostesses with all the S's on the end. Absolutely pleasure talking to you. You made me feel very at home and very welcomed.
Thank you for tuning into the Coaching Lounge. Join us next time for more insightful interviews with inspiring guests. You can hear previous shows on SoundCloud by searching for Satellite Life Coaching. We're always interested to hear your feedback and topic suggestions, so don't hesitate to email us on info@satellitelifecoaching.com.